You know, our parents sold us a dream, a simple, almost logical dream. Study, get your degree, find a permanent job, buy a house, and life will be beautiful. Easy, right? Well, not really. Today, I'm telling you straight, that model no longer works. Yes, I'm talking about the famous path our parents followed to the letter, and which, in their time, worked. But today, honestly, that's a different story. I believed in it too. I had blind faith. I told myself, okay, I'll do everything like they did. I'll succeed. But reality quickly caught up with me. You know that moment when you think you have the keys to success, and then, boom, the wall, the famous invisible wall of modern life. A permanent job that doesn't pay enough, an expensive house, degrees that no longer guarantee anything. And then you look in the mirror and say to yourself, but what's going on? And it's not just you, it's all of us, caught between what we were taught and what modern life imposes on us. Our parents did their best, don't get me wrong, but the rules of the game have changed. The job market, technology, the cost of living. It's all blown our parents' perfect plan up the drain. And honestly, it's a little scary when you realize that following the traditional path today can leave you poorer rather than safer. So yes, it's hard, but it makes you think. And if we didn't tell you clearly, you might never see it coming. I admit, I wasn't ready to see how outdated our benchmarks were. But now that I understand it, I want to share this with you so that we can all stop chasing a model that no longer corresponds to our reality. So stay with me, because what you're about to discover next could save you years of misery. And most importantly, open your eyes to how to truly take back control of your life. Honestly, look around you. Our parents had a plan that worked. Diploma, permanent job, house, peaceful retirement. Simple, clear, reassuring. But today, that plan, it's completely outdated. And I'll tell you why. First, let's talk economy. Inflation. Do you know what that does to your salary? Even if you work hard in your permanent job, your money can't keep up. You earn the same as 10 years ago, but everything costs twice as much. Rents are skyrocketing, house prices are soaring, and then you say to yourself, but how am I going to get out of this? And yes, this invisible wall is real. Then the labor market has changed radically. Before, a degree opened almost all doors. Today, you're asked for experience you don't have, skills you never learned in school. You can have the best degree in the world, but if you're not connected to the right technology or the right networks, you're left on the sidelines. And believe me, I've seen friends, highly qualified, struggle for months, simply because the world has evolved faster than school. And then, the technology. Oh dear. That's a real game changer. Everything changes fast, and if you stay stuck in your parents' model, you'll be left behind. Artificial intelligence, digital professions, remote working. The world is moving at full speed. And you? If you continue to think that a permanent contract will protect you, you'll get hit. Because the permanent contract, which was supposed to be a safety net, today, it's more like a fake umbrella in the storm. A little personal example. I started working in a safe company, the famous permanent contract. Everything was going well until I realized that my income wasn't keeping up with the cost of living. Rent, groceries, transportation. Everything was going up and my salary was stagnating. And then, mental pause. You look at your bank account and you say to yourself, seriously? Is this the life I wanted? The problem is
that the classic model is full of traps. Degree, permanent job, house. It worked for our parents because the economy was stable, the cost of living reasonable, and debt was almost non-existent. Today, it's different. If you follow this path without thinking, you end up accumulating stress, debt, and a constant feeling of chasing something you'll never achieve. And honestly, it's discouraging. And it's not their fault. Our parents did the best they could with what they knew. But what about us? We need to understand that the world has changed. What worked yesterday doesn't guarantee anything tomorrow. And recognizing that is the first step to taking back control of your life. Because if you continue to follow the same model, you risk being stuck in a system that impoverishes more than it protects. So yes, the realization is brutal. But it's also liberating. Because now that you know, you can act. And that changes everything. So now, let's talk consequences. Because yes, following the classic model doesn't just kill the dream. It can downright empty your pockets and deprive you of freedom. And I swear, it's subtle at first. But you quickly feel it. So now, let's talk consequences. Because yes, following the classic model doesn't just kill the dream, it can downright empty your pockets and deprive you of freedom. And I swear it's subtle at first. But you quickly feel it. First, the money you know. That famous permanent contract that was supposed to keep you safe. Well, it keeps your stress safe, not your bank account safe. Expenses are skyrocketing, rent, bills, loans, and you're struggling to make ends meet. While your parents were saving for their house in peace, you're struggling just to make ends meet. And that's when you realize that the model you were sold doesn't prepare you for today's economic reality. Second, the stress. Because with a stagnant salary and rising expenses, you're constantly under pressure. Every bill is a brutal reminder that the system isn't made for you. Honestly, I wasn't ready to realize that. I too thought that working hard was enough. And then, surprise, it's never enough. You work more to have less freedom. Third, the time you know, the thing that's supposed to be yours. Well, no. Between the commute, the overtime, and the financial obligations, your time evaporates. And when you look around you, you realize that your parents had more leeway. They could plan, invest, enjoy. You're chasing your own time. And then, mental pause. You say to yourself, but is this the freedom I was meant to achieve? And then there's that sneaky feeling of dependence. Dependence on salary, dependence on debt, dependence on external conditions. It's all an invisible cage. You work for a permanent contract that gives you a false sense of security, but in reality controls you. And all the while, you dream of independence, but the system holds you back. A small, concrete example. A friend of mine, a graduate, a stable permanent contract, and yet he's overwhelmed by loans for a car, an apartment, and his daily expenses. Every month, he has to juggle to make it all happen. And I look at him and I say to myself, honestly, was it supposed to be like this? But perhaps the worst is this lack of freedom of choice. Because when your money goes into bonds, your time disappears into a job you're not passionate about. How can you do what you really want? Travel, learn, create, invest in yourself. The classic model pushes you into a routine where you survive more than you live. So yes, the consequences are real. Debt, stress, lack of time, and a feeling of invisible imprisonment. And you often don't realize this until it's too late. But the good thing is, understanding this is the beginning of regaining control. Because knowing where the model is failing is knowing where you need to act. And believe me, once you realize all this, you'll never look at your permanent job or your degree the same way again. So here we are. After realizing that our parents' model no longer works, only one question remains. What do we do now? Because staying stuck in the traditional system means continuing to get frustrated, stressed, and waste time and money. And frankly, who wants that? Nobody. The solution? Rethinking your strategy. Yes, it means stopping stupidly following a path that no longer corresponds to our times. And here, I'm not talking about revolutionizing your life overnight. I'm talking about adopting new financial and professional models. You know what I mean? Not just a permanent contract and that's it. But diversify your income, create opportunities, and take back control of your time. For example, financial independence. It's a word that makes you dream, but it can seem far away. And yet, it starts small. A small investment here, a side project there. Here's a quick aside. I started investing in simple things, like a small online portfolio. And you know what? Even that small gesture changed my view of money. Because for the first time, I saw my money working for me, not the other way around. And then there are the side business. Yes, those famous side projects that take time at first, but give you that freedom in the long run. You can create, sell, learn, and above all, not depend solely on your monthly salary. And believe me, when you start to see that your income no longer depends on a single job, it frees you mentally. You can finally breathe. Not forgetting the digital skills. Today, the world is connected, and there are thousands of ways to monetize your expertise online. Design, marketing, writing, training. The possibilities are endless. And then you say to yourself, but I don't have time. Well, yes, because investing a few hours now means gaining years of freedom later. The goal is not to run away from work, nor to reject our parents. No. The goal is to reinvent the model so that it truly serves us, so that money and work serve our lives, and not the other way around. Because true security today is not a secure permanent contract. It is the ability to create, to diversify, to not depend on a single stream of income. And you know what? This reinvention has a magical effect. The freedom to choose your time, your projects, your lifestyle. Freedom to say no to debts, to obligations that bring you nothing. Freedom to dream bigger, to invest in yourself, and to build a solid future even if no one taught you how. So yes, it's a path that requires reflection, action, and patience. But once you understand that, you won't look at your degree, your permanent job, or your mortgage in the same way. You understand that true security and true wealth come from your ability to invent your model, to think outside the box, and create your own system. Well, now that you know that the classic model is outdated, and that reinventing your strategy is essential, the real question is where to start concretely. Because it's all well and good to understand, but if you just sit there and think, nothing changes. Step 1. Learn how to invest. And I'm not talking about super complicated stuff. Even with a small budget, you can get started. Stocks, crypto, fractional real estate. The important thing is to understand how to make your money work for you instead of letting it sit in an account that earns you zero. And then, mental pause. You realize it's possible. Here's a little anecdote. I started with $50 a month, just to test it out. Today, this small gesture has given me more financial confidence than years of simple savings in a savings account. And believe me, it changes your mindset. Step 2. Diversify your income. That famous side business we were talking about. Why settle for just one income stream when you can create several? I know people who sell online, others who teach their passion, and still others who create content and monetize their audience. The idea is to no longer depend solely on your salary. And frankly, even a modest project can save you one day. I remember a friend who made small online sales on weekends. A year later, he quit his permanent job to make a living from his projects. You see the thing? Step 3. Get out of the comfort of the CDI. Yes, it's scary. Leaving that safety net behind isn't easy. But staying in it means accepting stagnation. Start small. Take initiative. Try out side projects. Learn new skills. Even a few hours a week is enough to start building your independence. And then, you realize that freedom is within reach. A little tip. Write down your goals, even the smallest ones. Seeing your progress in black and white is more motivating than you think. Step 4. Work on your mindset. Because everything else is useless if your mind is blocked. Believing that you can change the rules of the game, being willing to step out of your comfort zone, being willing to learn from your mistakes. That's the key. Here's a quick aside. I myself failed several times at the beginning, but each mistake taught me something that the CDI would never have taught me. And honestly, those lessons are worth more than any classic security. Step 5. Enjoy every victory, no matter how small. Every euro invested, every project launched, every skill acquired is a step towards freedom. And then, pause. You realize that you're no longer a prisoner of the system. You take back control. You save time, you save money, and above all, you gain peace of mind. And that, my friend, is priceless. So if you remember one thing today, start small, think big, and move. Even if it's scary, even if the road is long, every step counts. And believe me, every little action you take now is building your future. Not the one they sold you, yours. So, to keep this from remaining abstract, imagine these situations. You see your friend, Thomas. Graduate, stable permanent job. Everything seemed perfect. But every month end, it's a struggle. The bills pile up, the credits too, and he's running everywhere to make it happen. And you look at him and you say to yourself, honestly, it makes you think, do I want to end up like this too? Or take your cousin, Leah. She bought her house, following her parents' model to the letter. House, loan, insurance, everything is in order, on the surface. But behind the scenes, she stresses every day. She wonders if she'll be able to pay it back, if she'll be able to travel, if she'll be able to invest a little for herself. And then, mental pause. You realize that the dream we've been sold isn't always what it seems. And you? Imagine yourself in their shoes. If it were you, what would you do? Would you continue to follow the path you've been given, hoping things would get better? Or would you start looking for another, freer, safer path for your future? These situations aren't uncommon. They're all around us. And honestly, it makes you think when you see that even ultra-responsible people who have done everything correctly find themselves stuck. Here's a quick aside. I know another friend who dared to leave the permanent contract and try out a project on the side. The beginnings were chaotic, even stressful. But a year later, he's living better, freer, more serene, and above all, he's understood that following the parental model would have limited his life. And that changes everything. The point here is to put yourself in the spectator's shoes, because seeing someone else in these struggles resonates. It makes you think about your own journey. Do I really want to end up in this? It's a stinging question, but a necessary one, because accepting reality is the first step to change. These stories, these fictional but realistic testimonies, serve one purpose: to make you feel that you are not alone, that the struggle of a permanent job, the pressure of credit, the constant stress, it affects a lot of people. And that if you want to get out of it, you have to think differently, act differently. It's not a criticism of your parents. It's just understanding that the world has changed and that you too must evolve. So take a break. Imagine yourself in their place, then in your place. Compare. And then you understand the urgency of rethinking your model. You see? It's not abstract. It's concrete. And above all, it's doable. Because every little step you take now, every thought, every action, you're the one taking back control. And believe me, that feeling of freedom, it's priceless. So let's back up for a second, because all of this can seem overwhelming if you look too far ahead. But do you see the common thread? We figured out that your parents' model no longer works. Permanent contract, house, diploma. These days, they no longer guarantee security or freedom. And it's not their fault. They did the best they could in their time. But we have to adapt. We saw the concrete consequences: debt, stress, lack of time, dependence on a single salary. Situations that many experience without even realizing it. But recognizing this is the beginning of freedom. Because understanding that something isn't working is already the beginning of changing it. We also talked about reinvent its strategy, diversify your income, learn to invest, create side projects, develop your digital skills. It's not a magic formula. It's concrete. And every little step counts. Even a small action, repeated over time, can transform your life. Here's a quick aside. I started with nothing. Just an idea and a little courage. Today, it makes all the difference. And then there, IL mindset. Believe that you can change the rules of the game. Dare to step out of your comfort zone. Accept mistakes as lessons. Because in the end, it's your mindset that determines the quality of your life. If you keep thinking you have to follow the beaten path, you'll stay stuck. But if you believe you can create your own path, then anything becomes possible. Now, look at yourself. Imagine your future. Do you want to continue chasing an outdated model? Or do you want to take control? Build a life where money, time, and choices are at your service. Because it's possible. Yes, you too can start today. Small step by small step. Learn, test, adjust. So here it is. The message is simple. Don't submit to the system anymore. Reinvent it. Make your money work for you. Create opportunities. Invest in your skills and projects. And above all, believe in yourself. Because the most important thing is not just financial security, but freedom, serenity, and the pride of building your life according to your own rules. So, are you ready to change your future? To break out of the mold that's keeping you locked in and start creating something that truly reflects you? If the answer is yes, then start now. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. Because every minute counts. Every action brings you a little closer to the freedom you deserve. And trust me, the feeling of taking back control of your life, it's priceless.